So step back. I've talked a bit about fundamental principles before, but I've never really connected all that to magical practice. Okay. So why do I think the practice of magic is useful or beneficial? So I want to walk you through the steps in logic that got me to that point. And it took me a while to really kind of like think about and put together. First axiom, if you will, is that we need meaning and purpose in our lives to be happy. Basically, the most tragic and painful life is one where you feel like life is meaningless and purposeless. And it doesn't matter how much material wealth that you have or comfort that you live in. If you don't have fulfillment in that way, you're miserable. To not have a sense of meaning and purpose in life is makes life unlivable. Okay. Second proposition is that purpose in life cannot be given or imposed from outside ourselves. We have to find it for ourselves. I could see I might get some pushback from like certain religious groups, like let's say Christians might say, well, it comes from. What I'm saying is that, and I think the Christian would agree with me, is that free will exists. That the individual still has to decide for themselves whether to embrace particular teachings of a particular religion, church, whatever, or not. It is their responsibility. It ultimately falls on us individually to find the truth for ourselves, to find purpose and meaning for ourselves. Third proposition is that finding and living according to that purpose involves aligning ourselves with our deep self. And this, I'm calling it right now, I'm calling it the deep self, but I mean, what I mean by that is our higher self. I mean, every tradition, every path, whatever, has a different name for this, but basically our subconscious mind, our psyche, our spirit, our soul, our authentic selves, be our authentic self. That seems to be a real popular saying right now. Be your authentic self. What does that mean? I think what it means is an alignment of your conscious and unconscious, and your higher self and your lower self, whatever. I don't really like that, the higher, but whatever, those kinds of distinctions and alignment of those, so that you're living according to, you're living in harmony with your deep self, your higher self, your subconscious. It's all harmonized in alignment and that kind of thing. Okay. However, there's various ways of expressing that, and I think every philosophy and every religion has a different way of saying that. But I think that's what it boils down to in essence. So here's the next proposition for you: the deep self, our subconscious, our higher self, etc., thinks and works in terms of metaphor, story, myth. It thinks magically. Okay. So the phrase magical thinking, whatever you may think of that phrase, it applies to the subconscious. That is the way the subconscious thinks and processes and understands. And I think that is pretty well established. I mean, from the very beginning of the field of psychology, it is well established that is how the subconscious acts and thinks. So my next proposition is that to interact with this deep self, we have to speak and understand its language. That seems to be pretty self-evident, doesn't it? If we're going to cooperate with somebody or something, we have to be able to communicate with them. Now, here's where things get a little subjective. But and I think I have good support for this, that magical practice is the art and science of interacting with the subconscious, with the deep self. That's what it is. I might even go so far as to say that's what spirituality is. Now, my final proposition is the most subjective, but it is what I have concluded over 40 years of searching and practicing and researching. And I mean, half of that time was studying Eastern philosophy, studying Buddhism. It's only in the second half of my journey that I started studying the Western philosophies and esoteric systems and that kind of thing. But my conclusion is that Hermeticism is the best expression of all of these fundamental propositions. It is an individualistic approach. It is a framework, and it is the best system for connecting to our deeper selves. And so that's why I practice it. And if anybody would like to discuss or debate any of these particular propositions, I would love to have it. Let's talk.